Welcome back to Patrick Christie's Tonight. Well, I've got loads more coming your way, but breaking news tonight. One of the UK's leading psychiatrists is calling on the government to stop their plans for an £11 million puberty blockers trial for gender-distressed children. Now, plans for a trial were announced last year following the publication of the CAS review into gender identity services, which concluded that vulnerable young children were given harmful puberty blockers based on weak evidence. But in a rare intervention, Dr. David Bell, the former psychiatrist who blew the whistle on the Tavistock Centre, that scandal that happened there, has now called on the government to block this trial. Basically, it's a second scandal, as far as they're concerned. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by model and the gender-critical activist, Sascha Bailey. Sascha, thank you very, very much. Would you mind just starting, please, by outlining a bit of your story, what happened to you, for a bit of context?
So I had kind of a rapid onset gender dysphoria in a sense that I didn't really... I had a little bit of the background of it. I was predisposed to it, and it was something that probably throughout my background as a child would have been something that would have pushed me towards transitioning in the future. But due to the kind of circumstances I was in, I ended up pushing myself towards it. And I think that that's something we can see a lot with young men today, is that the outside circumstances and the extenuating circumstances in the world may push them towards wanting to transition, especially for gender-confused kids.
And you got right to the brink, didn't you?
Yeah, I was prescribed HRT in Japan, and within 10 minutes, actually. And I was very close to smacking the magical patches on and becoming a lady, as they say.
Right.
But I decided not to, due to kind of having time to think about it, meeting people in my personal life, and also just being able to laugh at what I was doing, because the absurdity of wanting to do this and losing the ability to have children forever when I was, only 28 years old is crazy. And there's a lot of people right now making that decision when they're young through HRT or through puberty blockers.
Well, let's talk about it. So you were 28 when you had that experience, and you came back from the brink there, and life's very different now for you. But we are talking here about prepubescent kids, aren't we, with this? And so what's going on here? Because I thought, when I read the CAS review, it turns out I was wrong about this, that they'd really kind of shut the door on experimentation on kids, but they've not, have they?
No, I mean, the thing with scientific studies is you have to leave the door open, otherwise people will say that it's not scientific. So you have to give people the opportunity to test it. The problem with this is that we're testing it on humans. There is no option for an animal study. There's no way that you can know, because animals know which gender they are intrinsically, because it's biologically innate. But with this, we have to test and see whether it will work in theory. But the problem with that is we're ruining people's lives forever at the cost.
I mean, you think, ultimately, you think that this will ruin children's lives?
I think that there is no way that someone this age can be making that decision. I didn't want to have kids when I was that young. Most people don't. To ask a teenager if they want to have kids, unless you're talking about, like, Vicky Pollard, it's very, very unlikely they're going to say yes. So with this, we kind of find ourselves in a place where the problem is it's very unlikely these kids are going to say yes to I want kids. But in the future, 10 years down the line, you never know what's going to be answered. But these decisions that they're making now are decisions going to impact them from the rest of their life. People compare it to, getting a tattoo or something like that, but you can have a tattoo removed. It might cost a lot more than having a tattoo put on, but
I'm just quite surprised that there seems to be such a willing supply of doctors who are willing to basically experiment on kids.
Well, the problem is it's ideological based. So all of the gender kind of doctrines, every single one of them is based in belief. It can only be done by self-reporting an individual lived experience. And what decisions a doctor might make on what is the right decision to go forward is based in their own personal worldview. So the only things we can focus on is the objective facts, which these drugs are bad for you. They will affect the rest of your life. These surgeries are bad for you. They will affect the rest of your life. These sort of things that kids cannot make the decisions on.
And crucially as well, just quickly on this, you also think that there's a very good chance that they'll go on to regret it?
Yes, I think so. I think there's a good chance they'll go on to regret it. I think the other side of it is that if they don't go on to regret it, we've lost out on, a part of humanity that we could have had.
Yeah, it's good. But look, Sascha, thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to have you back in the studio again. Great to hear from you, and great to hear that you do so well as well. So thank you very, very much. That's Sascha Bailey there. Now, I've just got to read out this. This is the Department for Health and Social Care spokesperson saying, for years, puberty blockers were given to vulnerable young children without proof that they were safe or effective. This is shameful. We are putting children's safety first with an evidence-based approach to the puberty blockers ban, which is in line with recommendations both the CAS review said and the Independent Commission on Human Medicines. NHS England is working to establish a carefully controlled trial into puberty blockers. Clinical trials provide vital evidence on the effects of medicines and are conducted to the highest scientific and ethical standards. Obviously, everyone can make their own minds up as to whether or not they agree with that.